Hi, my name is Danielle Stephenson-pino, and I did my project on the Soloist. So, for some background context, this took place in Los Angeles, California. We have a news reporter, Steve Lopez, who had hit a dead end on all of his stories until he stumbled upon Nathaniel Ayers. Now, Nathaniel Ayers is a schizophrenic homeless man, and he actually has a brilliant gift with music. When Steve found him, he was playing music on a violin that only had two strings left, yet it still sounded angelic. So Steve wrote a story on Nathaniel, and by doing so, he actually mentioned his childhood instrument, which was the cello. And then a kind woman actually ended up sending him a cello, in which he gifted to Nathaniel. So this movie basically follows their journey together. The psychological disorder that I diagnosed Nathaniel with was schizophrenia. This disorder is having the thoughts or experiencing things that are not in touch with reality, and there are many symptoms that come along with the disorder. So some of those symptoms are disorganized thoughts, hallucinations, delusions, disorganized speech, reduced speech, flat affect, social withdrawal, and absence of pleasure and motivation. Alright, so some cultural context for this movie. It is basically taking place in a not so nice part of town. There are homeless people everywhere, and basically they're just living on top of one another. And a lot of people in this area have tons of mental illnesses and just mm, basically they're living all together. So there is a doctor in this movie, but he actually states that he does not want to diagnose people with mental illnesses because they've already been diagnosed over and over and over again. So he basically says, what's it really going to do if I give them one more label? So yeah. Some stigmas that I found are that schizophrenic people are actually naturally violent, but not in all cases. So you can't just say some people are violent, so everyone's violent. So that was one I found. And also, I found that in the medical environment, some people basically say that there are low expectations held upon these individuals. That they're like not gonna make as much progress or advancements as like someone else. But with the right help, I believe anyone can make progress. So some of the symptoms, one of the symptoms in this movie was a delusion, or delusions, because he had many of these. But one specific example is when he was playing in the Juilliard Orchestra. He began to hear all these voices in his head, and these voices were basically telling him to run and hide. Um, Even though there was really no one there telling him this, the delusions in his head just basically were creating these voices of him. So that's one of the symptoms. Another one is disorganized speech. He actually would ramble on and then change subjects just so quickly that you just almost couldn't keep up with what he was actually talking about. Um, but this happens multiple times in the movie. But at first, for a specific time, it actually happened when Steve first meets Nathaniel, um, and he basically just goes on. So a missing symptom I saw was reduced speech because Nathaniel can actually talk pretty well. It's just kind of like the disorganized part, but he can actually articulate and say all these words perfectly fine. So unless he was nervous or afraid, then he kind of quieted down. So treatment. Honestly, I feel like the best way to go about this is to try not to alter the person's mental state anymore because I just feel like it's going to be better for them if they can do it without a drug. Um, but if I were to prescribe a drug, it would be prochlorperazine because I actually found that it was usually not addictive. However, there could be a withdrawal period, but other than that, not very addictive. But my goal would be to kind of less reliant on medication and more on the support in the family. So just trying to educate the family on schizophrenia, just so they know about it, and just try to get the family more involved. In this case, within Nathaniel's life, because he had no one in the movie until Steve found his sister. So yeah, and I also think it would be important to perform some cognitive rehabilitation to help Nathaniel be able to put his thoughts and speech together in a more understandable way. So a broader perspective, personally, I've never met someone with schizophrenia. It's a little more difficult to determine whether the film portrayed it accurately or not. But from reading the DSM and doing research of my own, I feel like the film did a great job digging into the mind of someone with this mental illness and capturing all the emotions, thoughts, and actions so that people watching could understand. And there's my citations. Thank you.